Have you ever wondered what goes on behind the curtain of someone's life? What subtle signs might reveal more than what meets the eye? Today, we're diving into a topic that's as ancient as love itself, but modern in its complexity: relationships, trust, and perception. Specifically, we're uncovering 11 secret signs she may have multiple partners. But there's a twist: we'll explore this topic through the timeless lens of Stoicism, guided by the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. Before we jump in, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. By doing so, you're not only supporting the work we put into these deep dives, but also ensuring you don't miss life-changing insights like this one. Trust me, watch this video until the end, and it might just transform how you approach love and relationships forever. Let's set the stage. Relationships are intricate dances of trust, communication, and behavior. But sometimes doubts creep and subtle behaviors start to feel off. Is it insecurity, or is there something more? Instead of jumping to conclusions, we'll learn to decode the truth the Stoic way: calm, composed, and rational. To understand this, let's travel back in time. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, often faced complex human interactions. In his journal Meditations, he reflects on human nature, emotions, and truth with profound simplicity. He teaches us to observe without judgment, to remain centered even when emotions cloud our clarity. How does this wisdom apply to modern relationships? It's simple. Instead of reacting impulsively, we learn to observe. Instead of accusing, we ask ourselves, what do I truly see? And how do I know it's real? With this framework in mind, let's uncover the 11 subtle signs. And remember, this isn't about jumping to conclusions, but about fostering clarity. 1. Guarded conversations. Let's begin with a question. Have you ever asked your partner a simple question, like, how was your day? And noticed an odd hesitation? Maybe the answer feels vague, or they deflect with a joke or change the subject entirely. This might seem innocent on the surface, but let's pause and reflect on it. Picture this: you're in a relationship where conversations once flowed naturally. You shared every little detail, from what you ate for lunch to your wildest dreams. But lately, something's different. You ask her about her plans, and she hesitates or gives a half-hearted response. Or maybe she dodges the question altogether. Now, I want you to think about your own experiences. Can you recall a time when someone you cared about seemed to hold back? How did that make you feel? Did it create a sense of unease, like a tiny crack forming in the foundation of your trust? Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher, offers us wisdom here. Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. This quote reminds us not to jump to conclusions too quickly. Guarded conversations don't always mean something is wrong, but they can be an indicator that something has shifted. Now, here's where the story deepens. Imagine sitting across from her during dinner. You notice she's scrolling on her phone, her answers short and distracted. You mention a funny memory, hoping to pull her back into the moment, but her laughter feels distant. What's going on here? Could it be stress? Could it be that she's processing something personal? Or could it be that she's emotionally withdrawing because her focus is elsewhere? The key here is observation, not accusation. Marcus Aurelius teaches us to remain calm and rational. Instead of letting your mind spiral into worst-case scenarios, start paying attention to patterns. Is this guardedness a one-time occurrence, or has it become a recurring theme? But let me ask you this: have you ever thought that sometimes we create stories in our heads based on incomplete information? Have you been in a situation where you assumed the worst, only to find out later that there was a simple explanation? Relationships require clarity, not assumptions. So, the next time you sense guardedness, don't jump to conclusions. Instead, open up the lines of communication. Ask her, is everything okay? You've seemed a little distracted lately. Create a safe space for her to share, free of judgment or pressure. In doing so, you're not just addressing a potential problem. You're strengthening the bond you share. And isn't that what love is all about? Building a foundation so strong that even the smallest cracks can be mended. 2. Sudden emotional distance. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt someone pull away emotionally? Even when they're sitting right next to you? It's a painful feeling, isn't it? You go from being their closest confidant to feeling like a stranger. Imagine this. You're watching a movie together, something you both love. But tonight she seems distant. Her laughter feels forced, her attention elsewhere. When the credits roll, instead of discussing the plot twists like you used to, she quietly excuses herself. No arguments, no visible tension, just distance. Have you ever experienced this? Maybe it wasn't a movie, but a dinner date, a road trip, or even a lazy Sunday at home. That sudden shift in emotional connection can leave you feeling unmoored. Here's where Stoicism comes into play. Marcus Aurelius teaches us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. This means we must first ground ourselves in the face of emotional shifts. Her distance might not have anything to do with you, or it could indicate something deeper. But let's get personal for a moment. Can you think of a time when you felt emotionally distant in a relationship? What caused it? Stress at work? Personal struggles? Or maybe, just maybe, it was because you weren't fully committed anymore. Reflecting on your own experiences can help you approach her with empathy instead of frustration. Now, consider this scenario. You try to bridge the gap. You ask her if everything's okay, but her response feels like a wall. I'm fine. The temptation to push harder is strong, but Marcus Aurelius advises patience. Emotional distance isn't always solved overnight. Instead of confronting her with questions, try creating moments that invite her back in. Share a memory of a time when you both felt deeply connected. Ask her, do you remember that weekend trip we took? The one where we got caught in the rain and laughed about it for hours? Nostalgia has a way of softening emotional walls. 3. Inconsistent schedules. Let's talk about something that might hit close to home. Have you ever been excited about spending time with someone you love, only for them to cancel plans at the last minute? How did it make you feel? Maybe a little disappointed, perhaps even questioning if something was wrong. Now imagine this scenario. You've planned a special evening. You reserved her favorite table at a cozy restaurant, picked out a playlist for the drive, and even got a small gift just to show her how much she means to you. Then just hours before the date, your phone buzzes. It's her. Hey, I'm so sorry, but I can't make it tonight. Something came up. Your heart sinks. This isn't the first time. If you've experienced something like this, you're not alone. These moments make us question everything. Is she really busy, or is there something she's not telling me? Here's the truth. It's natural to feel a little uneasy when someone's schedule suddenly becomes unpredictable. But instead of jumping to conclusions, let's look at this from a Stoic perspective. Marcus Aurelius teaches us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. What does this mean in the context of inconsistent schedules? It means we need to focus on what we can control, our reactions, our communication, and our ability to observe without letting emotions take over. But let's bring this back to you. Think about a time when your own schedule was chaotic. Maybe it was work deadlines, family commitments, or even personal struggles. Did you find it hard to prioritize everything? Could she be going through something similar? Here's another angle. Sometimes, changes in behavior aren't about being busy, but about a shift in priorities. This doesn't automatically mean the worst. It could simply mean she's juggling too much. But here's the kicker. If these last-minute changes keep happening, it's important to address the pattern. How do you approach it without sounding accusatory? Start with curiosity instead of confrontation. For example, you could say, I've noticed that plans have been harder to stick to lately. Is everything okay? I just want to make sure we're on the same page. This opens the door to honest conversation without putting her on the defensive. And let me ask you this. Have you ever misinterpreted someone's actions and later realized there was a simple explanation? This is why patience is key. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that people are complex, and clarity often comes from calm observation rather than quick reactions. Ultimately, relationships are about balance. If her schedule continues to feel inconsistent, it's worth reflecting on how it makes you feel and discussing it openly. Because at the heart of any strong relationship is the ability to communicate, even when it's uncomfortable. 4. Secretive behavior with her phone. Let's dive into a scenario that might feel uncomfortably familiar. Picture this. You're sitting on the couch together, enjoying a quiet evening. Her phone buzzes and she quickly flips it over or moves it out of view. You tell yourself it's nothing, but that small action lingers in your mind. Let me ask you something. Have you ever experienced a moment like this? Maybe you didn't think much of it at first, but over time, it started to feel like a pattern. Does she get defensive when you glance at her screen? Or excuse herself to answer messages in private? In today's world, our phones hold our lives, our friends, our work, our secrets. So when someone becomes overly protective of theirs, it's natural to wonder why. But before we let doubt take over, let's step back and think about this from a Stoic perspective. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, if someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth. This wisdom teaches us to approach situations like these with curiosity and a willingness to understand, not accuse. Now, let's get personal for a moment. Have you ever felt the need to keep your phone to yourself? Not because you were hiding something, but because you valued your privacy? Could she be doing the same? Or does her behavior point to something deeper? Here's a story you might relate to. A friend of mine once shared how his girlfriend would always turn her phone face down during meals. At first, he brushed it off as a habit, but as time went on, he noticed she'd take her phone with her everywhere, even when it wasn't necessary. It began to eat away at him. Was it work? A friend? Or someone else? He decided to address it not by accusing her, but by expressing his feelings. I've noticed you're a little private with your phone lately. It's probably nothing, but it's made me feel a bit distant from you. Is everything okay? To his surprise, she opened up. She'd been dealing with work, stress, and didn't want him to worry about the constant emails and messages. This is why communication is key. Secretive phone behavior doesn't always mean something sinister. It could be stress, a need for privacy, or even a surprise she's planning for you. The key is to approach the situation with calmness and empathy. So, the next time you notice her acting secretive with her phone, ask yourself, am I observing patterns or am I jumping to conclusions? Open a dialogue, not a confrontation. Because at the end of the day, trust isn't just given, it's built. One honest conversation at a time. 5. Evasiveness about the future. Let's talk about dreams for a moment. Close your eyes and think about the future you imagine with someone you love. Picture the vacations, the late night talks about your shared dreams, the life you want to build together. Beautiful, isn't it? But what happens when you try to have those conversations and she avoids them? Does she change the subject when you talk about plans for next year? Does she laugh off your suggestion of something as simple as a holiday, trip, or an important milestone? Let me ask you this, has that ever happened to you? It's disheartening, isn't it? You start to wonder, why does she hesitate? Does she see a future with me? Imagine this scenario. You're sitting together one evening, talking about the future. You bring up the idea of moving in together, getting a pet, or even something as small as planning a trip 6 months from now. She shifts in her seat, looks away, and says, let's not rush things. At first, it seems reasonable. But over time, her reluctance starts to feel like avoidance. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher, has a powerful piece of wisdom for moments like this. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This means that obstacles like her evasiveness are opportunities for growth and understanding. Now, think back to a time when you avoided talking about the future in your own life. Was it because you were unsure? Maybe you were overwhelmed with other parts of your life? Or perhaps you weren't fully invested in the relationship. Could she be feeling the same? Here's the truth, avoiding future plans isn't always a sign of disinterest. Sometimes people fear the unknown. Maybe she's had bad experiences in past relationships. Or maybe she's scared of committing to something that feels uncertain. Your role isn't to pressure her, but to create a space. where she feels safe to share her fears and dreams. Ask her gently, do you ever think about where we'll be a year from now? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Frame it as a conversation, not an interrogation. This can open a door to understanding what's on her mind. And let me ask you one more thing. Have you ever jumped to conclusions, only to realize later that there was a deeper reason behind someone's actions? That's why patience and understanding are so important. Evasiveness about the future doesn't always mean she doesn't see one with you. It could mean she needs more time, clarity, or reassurance. The key is to approach the topic with love and openness, showing her that you're invested in the journey, not just the destination. 6. Too much privacy. Let's shift gears and talk about privacy. We all value it, right? Too much privacy can feel isolating, but it doesn't have to lead to conflict. By creating a space for honesty and understanding, you can strengthen your relationship and rebuild the closeness you both cherish. 7. A shift in intimacy. Let's talk about intimacy for a moment. And no, I don't just mean the physical side of things. Intimacy is about connection. It's about feeling close, understood, and cherished. It's those quiet moments of holding hands, those long, meaningful gazes, and the way you laugh together at inside jokes only you two understand. But what happens when that intimacy begins to fade? Have you ever noticed a shift in the way your partner interacts with you? Maybe the affectionate touches are less frequent. The compliments have stopped coming. Or the warmth in her voice feels different. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt your partner pulling away emotionally? It's a painful realization, isn't it? You go from feeling like you're in this together to wondering if she's still as invested as you are. Now imagine this. You're sitting together on the couch, just like you used to. But tonight, something feels off. You lean in for a hug, and she doesn't respond with the same enthusiasm. You try to initiate a deep conversation, but her answers are short, almost dismissive. It's not anger or frustration, it's indifference, and that hurts even more. Marcus Aurelius once said, "What we do now echoes in eternity." This wisdom reminds us that every moment matters, especially in relationships. When you notice a shift in intimacy, it's an opportunity to take action not by accusing or demanding, but by reflecting and reconnecting. Think back to when your relationship was at its strongest. What made those moments special? Was it the effort you both put in? The shared experiences? Or maybe it was the way you prioritized each other, even in the busiest of times. What would it take to bring that back? Let's get personal for a moment. Have you ever experienced a time when life got in the way of your own ability to connect with someone? Maybe it was work stress, family issues, or even self-doubt. Could she be dealing with something similar now? The key to addressing a shift in intimacy is understanding. Instead of saying, "You've been distant, try, I miss the way we used to connect. Is there something on your mind?" This approach is less about blame and more about creating a space where she feels safe to share. And here's a thought. When was the last time you surprised her with something thoughtful? Sometimes, reigniting intimacy can be as simple as reminding her why you fell in love in the first place. Maybe it's writing her a heartfelt note, recreating your first date, or just spending an evening talking without distractions. Shifts in intimacy don't have to mean the end of a connection. They're a chance to rebuild, to reignite, and to remember why you chose each other in the first place. 8. She's always busy. Now let's talk about busyness. We've all been there, haven't we? Life gets hectic, work deadlines pile up. Social commitments demand our attention, and before we know it, our schedules are overflowing. But when someone you care about always seems too busy for you, it starts to feel different. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like you were competing for someone's time? It's frustrating, isn't it? You try to make plans, but her calendar is full. You send her a thoughtful message, but she replies hours later with a rushed, "Sorry, I've been so busy." Imagine this. You call her after a long day, excited to share some good news. But instead of engaging in the conversation, she says, "Can I call you back? I'm swamped." It's not just once, it's become a pattern. Over time, you start to wonder, is she really that busy or is she avoiding me? Here's where Stoicism can help us navigate the uncertainty. Marcus Aurelius teaches us, it is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. In relationships, this means not letting fear of rejection stop you from addressing what matters. But before jumping to conclusions, let's consider her perspective. Have you ever been in a phase where you were genuinely overwhelmed with life? Maybe she's dealing with work stress, family pressures, or personal challenges she hasn't shared yet. Her busyness might not be about you at all. At the same time, it's important to recognize when busyness becomes an excuse. If she consistently prioritizes everything else over your relationship, it's worth asking why. To his surprise, she opened up. She wasn't trying to push him away. She was overwhelmed and didn't know how to balance everything. That conversation was a turning point for them. 9. She rarely shares her feelings. Let's talk about emotional connection for a moment. Think back to a time when you had a deep, heartfelt conversation with someone you care about. Maybe it was under the stars over a cup of coffee or during a quiet moment at home. How did it feel to be vulnerable with each other, to open up, and to truly connect? Now, imagine that the person you're with doesn't share their feelings anymore, or maybe never has. You ask her how her day was, and she responds with a simple, "It was fine." You try to dig deeper, but she avoids the conversation or gives you vague answers. Over time, you start to wonder, does she trust me? Does she even want to share her world with me? Let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a relationship where emotional sharing felt one-sided? You're putting your heart on the line, but her walls seem impenetrable. It's frustrating, isn't it? Marcus Aurelius reminds us, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one, this Stoic wisdom teaches us to focus on what we can control, our own actions and responses. Instead of demanding vulnerability from her, create an environment where she feels safe to open up. Here's the thing, people often hide their feelings for a reason. Maybe she's been hurt in the past, or maybe she's afraid of being judged or misunderstood. Take a moment to reflect. Have you ever struggled to share your own feelings because of fear or past pain? Could she be experiencing something similar? Imagine this. You're sitting together one evening, and you notice she seems distant. Instead of asking, "What's wrong?" in a way that might feel confrontational, you say, "You seem a little off tonight. I'm here if you want to talk about it." This simple gesture shows her that you care without pressuring her to open up. A friend of mine once faced a similar situation. His girlfriend rarely expressed her emotions, and it left him feeling disconnected. Instead of getting frustrated, he started sharing more about himself, his dreams, fears, and even the small, silly things. Over time, she began to reciprocate. She needed to see that vulnerability wasn't a weakness, it was an act of trust. So here's a challenge for you. Be the first to take down your walls. Share a memory, a dream, or even a moment of self-doubt. Show her that emotions are safe in your relationship. And remember, patience is key. Building emotional intimacy takes time. If she rarely shares her feelings, it's not always a sign of disinterest. It could be an invitation for you to guide the way. 11. She avoids meeting your close friends or family. Let's talk about the people who matter most to you, your close friends and family. Think about the joy of introducing someone you love to them. The laughter, the shared stories, the sense of belonging. It's a special moment, isn't it? But what happens when she avoids those moments? You invite her to meet your best friends and she says, "Maybe next time." You suggest a family dinner and she suddenly remembers a prior commitment. Over time, it feels like she's avoiding becoming part of your world. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a relationship where it felt like someone was holding back from fully integrating into your life? It leaves you wondering, why doesn't she want to meet them? Is she not serious about us? Marcus Aurelius offers timeless wisdom for moments like this. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. In relationships, this means seeking honesty and understanding rather than jumping to conclusions. Marcus Aurelius teaches us to focus on what we can control: our thoughts, actions, and responses. By applying his wisdom, we not only navigate the complexities of relationships, but also grow as individuals. And there you have it, 11 subtle signs to watch for, combined with timeless Stoic wisdom to guide you through even the most challenging moments. If you found value in this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Share it with someone who might need this perspective. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.